All right, it's noon. It's time to go. I'm Kelly Carter, and I'm here on the Go Beyond Summit to speak about mainly active isolated stretching and my integrated practice and my look on active isolated stretching. That's the foundation of what I do. But I will be uh, going in and out of the give a general overview of active isolated stretching. Some of you may be familiar with it. Um, so, um, talking to Justin, and thank you, Justin, for having me aboard with this as well. So, I practice in Santa Monica, and I also practice in Corona Del Mar. I've been doing active isolated stretching for about 17 years now. Aaron Maditz founded that. It's out of Sarasota. I picked it up first when I was living in Sarasota. I picked up this method I was very interested in it because I was practicing a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I felt that would be really beneficial for my game and to help keep me healthy and to make me a better athlete. I just by fate found out about Aaron Maditz by just a random person. Back then, it wasn't like you found everything and you could Google everything and find who's out there all over the world. So I'm very grateful that I discovered it. Um, my main background is in Oriental medicine. I have my master's degree in Oriental medicine, acupuncture and Oriental medicine, and that was that was where I was going with my holistic medical career, and I took a different route and going into using active isolated stretching, but what I was also in the fight world, the MMA world, and so that sidetracked me a bit for a while away from my acupuncture studies. But since then, I had gone full circle and come back around, and that's why I am a doctoral fellow and went back to Oriental medicine, and really found that everything that I do with active isolated stretching and all the other integration that I use for my practice, it just complements each other so well. Active isolated stretching in Chinese medicine would be dredging the channels. It's really opening the channels and the pathways, and even Aaron Maditz makes reference to that in his book about how he talks a little bit about the acupuncture meridians, and it's funny because he also talks about the endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm layers of the skin, and then talking about the myofascial tissue, and all of this relates so much to acupuncture. So I look at it with a little different lenses than a physical therapist would or a chiropractor would, because I see the meridians in the body, and I see how that works energetically using active isolated stretching. It's so specific in creating length in the tissues and creating space in the body that you need a microsystem in there to really to understand it. I think at a deeper level, and the meridians really explain that so well and give you a great vision for the minutia of active isolated stretching. A little bit more. I said where I practice here. I also have a remote practice, and I teach seminars on active isolated stretching, Tai Chi, and acupuncture. I have a traveling practice as well. I have different locations that I visit globally as well. And I first started this whole business from an injury that I had at 15 years old. I was injured. I had a back injury at 15. I think was quite unusual at the time, and I had my back had seized up on me, and I went to this brilliant chiropractor who's a very much a holistically minded physician, and he was an acupuncturist and he was Mr. Gadget. He had just so many different machines that he used that created a healing effect, and he also was a great muscle tester. He was a very advanced applied kinesiologist, and that's where I caught on to muscle testing, as it says on my bio, that I do bioenergetics, and that's what that means, is that world of bioenergetics. Um, I would learn from him going into the office after my back had corrected itself quite fast, and I mean the MDs were like, "You will never play sports." He's like, "Oh, no problem. You'll be right back in the game again." And then them saying I'd never play sports, and here I am, 50 years old, still playing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a very extreme sport, and doing it quite healthfully as well, and going into competition still. So I really believed from the very beginning of my experience of the body healing itself was really true. Something out of Lifeline Technique, Dr. Darren Weissman's work, is the body's designed to heal, regenerate completely, and be whole. And that mantra has helped me so much through a lot of my own personal adventures, because injury does happen when you play a little rough as well. So I really believe that from the beginning, that the body could really heal itself, and I've experienced that many times since then, where many of these would be looked at as medical miracles. Some of the things that I've experienced with myself, just from my own personal experiences and playing sports and having to recover. So I first got into this into Chinese medicine from my Tai Chi teacher, who I lived with for about 10 years. I lived with the late, great Master Kimball Paul in Chicago, and he was going to acupuncture school, and I just assumed, oh, well, healing is just part of doing martial arts. That's just part of the deal. So I just took that on as like, that's just an extension of martial arts. So that motivated me for that. And historically, that is very true. And the Shaolin monks, the Shaolin warriors, they are all healers of themselves, and then they understand how to take care of other people and themselves, and they use herbal medicine and physical medicines to take care of themselves through their really harsh training. So I caught onto that quite early on to understand that this is an important part of your training, and it's not everybody that's going to train like that. I train, or a professional athlete at a level of professional athlete. I just think that everyone, just through the mere stress of day-to-day life, and the stress levels are at an entirely much higher level than they've ever been in history, with air pollution, water pollution, radio wave pollution, you name it, and driving in traffic, very unnatural things that the body experiences. And I'll get into that a little bit more, because that is the bigger picture of this, is the bigger picture is the stress, and having a system that can offset the damage of stress and our reaction to stress. As Hans Selye, he's a father of stress research, always said, it's not the stress that kills us, it's the reaction to the stress. So what I develop in my practice is an ability to, and tools, a lot of self-care tools, to help us so that we do not react to the stress. We don't react emotionally and hold on to that emotion and keep us in a looping phase of anger or whatever it may be, so that we can just let things go, because so much of it is emotional and mental. And you'll ask any great sports psychologist, any great coach, and they'll say, Sensei Benny the Jet's one of my senseis who spoke on this summit also, and he always told me, he goes, fighting is 90% mental. 90% mental. That's a big chunk. So a lot of what I'll do is not just hit that physical aspect, but the mental aspect of it. But it works so hand in hand, because if the physical is breaking down, that will really help that mind go right along with it and bring it down with it. So it's very important that we are constantly taking care of ourselves, constantly healing our bodies along the path. Daily self-care is a huge emphasis of um, my practice with my patients. I really emphasize taking care of themselves. I teach them a lot of exercises, Tai Chi. I teach them active isolated stretching to do daily on their own to help them succeed in their optimal health, and if they're athletes, to really increase their sports performance. Um, I came out here to California about how long has it been? Almost 15 years now, and this next month will be 15 years. And I came out here with the intention of fighting. I was gonna fight mixed martial arts out here. I had met a really well-known fighter, and he invited me out here. I came out here to train and fight with the intentions of getting. The hidden agenda was to get into the film industry. That's what I thought I wanted. So I come out here. Within 3 months, I started doing my work, my holistic work, when I came out here, along with my training. And as soon as I came out here, I fall into this practice that was just mind blowing. That it's like I'm in here in a matter of months, and I'm flying in jets with very well known people, and working on movie sets, and just in very well known athletes. And I still had the hay in my hair when I was growing my hair, um, from Illinois, and this was just such a strange world for me. And so I'd gotten sidetracked a bit with the film industry with my from my fighting. Went back around to my fighting again. Had some really great opportunities with that at the highest level, and then I suffered a really bad, relatively bad herniation of a disc, and torn and displaced my labrum in my hip. So the cartilage in my hip was all contorted, and I had excruciating pain for about 4 years with that. But one of the ways the reason I bring this up is how all this came together of me looking at things the way that I do, and through my experiences. I don't think everybody has to experience those kind of injuries to really understand and help and facilitate for people. But I guess that was my way to have empathy and for others. So I had that injury, did active isolated stretching through the whole time, and it really allowed my body to really heal itself, and to keep it from freezing up. When you have that kind of pain, your body tends to freeze up, and the joints can lock up, and you can lose your mobility significantly, and just freeze up, because your body's like, if I stay in this box, then everything's okay. Everything's okay if I stay in this box here. So if I don't go out of this, it's not going to hurt. So I was able to really experience how this can work in that level. So it's like it set me up to be able to really heal it and put myself in a healing mode the entire time, and still saving my athleticism, saving my ability to move properly, to not look towards surgery, which that what it was looking towards is hip and back surgery. And all of a sudden, bam, it was just gone, and it's never returned. And I had never been out of a little bit of back pain for maybe 6 months to a year at a time, and now it's been about 6 years since that happened, and I just don't have it anymore. It's the body really healed it. Healed something that, a 9mm bulge, herniated disc, an L4-L5, and then a labrum in your hip is turned and torn. And it's like, that's basically a medical miracle that could happen and really change itself at that level. and still be able to go and then compete at a very high level after that. I went back to Olympic weightlifting. My coach, Jerzy Gregorek, is speaking later today. A lot of my influence in my sports performance is a lot from him and from Olympic weightlifting and his Happy Body system as well. Done tremendous things for people and myself with understanding that that system and the health system of Olympic weightlifting. So anyway, I was able to recover that way, and there's story after story that I've had where I've had these kind of experiences where the body just completely healed itself and turned around, and without the surgery and staying away from no painkillers, nothing that could really inhibit that healing and understanding. Again, that concept that the body's designed to heal, regenerate completely, and be whole. I promise, the promise of the premise here is to speak about active isolated stretching. So I want to make sure that I cover this really well. Let me just give it like a little elevator speech on that and just break this down. And active isolated stretching is a multifaceted system of healing that encompasses both holistic system of healthcare and physical performance. It allows length of the muscles gently and efficiently, unlike any system available. AIS allows people to come closer to reaching their health potential or simply obtain the best of their body. When a body is finely tuned with AIS, active isolated stretching, you will experience movements that you've never thought possible. And I've heard that from athletes that I've worked with just after opening them up with this active isolated stretching for a while. They're like, I did acrobatic things on the soccer field that I've never done in 10 years of playing soccer. And my body just knew how to do it. I'd never practiced it, never experienced it. It just did it. And that goes along with understanding one of the real important aspects of active isolated stretching is the understanding of the myotatic reflex, or the stretch reflex, that is a system in the body that stops you from overstretching or moving out of your boundaries where you're going to get hurt. So it protects you from moving too far, extending too far to where you're going to get hurt or tear something or fracture something. So it stops you from actually performing at your highest level. It stops you from doing movements that you really can do. Your body just doesn't let you do them. So that's a really great point in that is that in active isolated stretching, although a form of stretching, is not to be compared or confused with what is commonly seen in a gym, like in gym class or in a health club. So I always thought that active isolated stretching should have a much sexier name than that, and that's something I may work on. It's like stretching. It should never be discounted because it really is truly a very profound healing modality. It's not bending over and touching your toes. It's very principally sound, and with great research behind this, research journals that will really back up the founding principles of this as well. Aaron has it very nicely referenced in his books. So it's not stinky kid stuff. So it's something completely different. It's very special and unique unto itself. And AIS is a healthcare system that is performed one-on-one with a practitioner, and also as a self-care system. And that's one of the biggest things of this whole thing is self-care. In Chinese medicine, it's a concept called yang shen, and it's self-nourishing, daily self-nourishing. And that is something that's really supposed to be our responsibility as practitioners, is to teach our people, to teach people that we are helping to really take care of themselves, right? We're here to prevent things from happening, prevent injuries from happening, prevent disease patterns from taking a foothold in the body. So I feel it my responsibility to really teach, educate, so that we all so that we can take care of ourselves. And then then you get a lot more out of working with me or working with another practitioner. You get much more out of it by doing this homework at home And I've seen that. One person that comes to mind that I worked with. He's a very special uh, uh, client of mine, and I've been working with him since he was a freshman in high school. Came to me with a knee injury, a quadricep injury near the knee, and he star soccer player, and he recovered immediately. He was supposed to be out for about 6 weeks, and he was back on the field in a week or two, I believe. Um, and he was really sold on it. So I've worked with him ever since, all the way through high school, all the way through UCLA, where he was a starter all 4 years, and now he's a pro. And that lad has never stopped working on it since then. He would get up at 5:30 in the morning, an extra half an hour a day before high school, before his schooling. That day he'd get up at 5:30 in the morning and he would stretch for half an hour. And I'd check on him. He told me he was doing it. I'm like, his parents, I go, is he really doing that? Because like, who does that? It's like he was so special and so diligent. But look at the results. That boy had hardly any injuries. And when he did have something, he would be so on top of it and never let it turn into something that was super damaging. He really knew how to listen to his body, take care of himself, and then he came into me, and we'd make sure that he stayed on track with that. Another thing that he had done also as part of what I do is a whole brain thinking, like Justin Franson had talked about as well. I learned a lot of that from Justin and Dean Brittenham's work, and then consulting with Dean Brittenham on this, how to really create a whole brain thinking athlete and to really calm the mind down, be ambidextrous. Ambidexterity is so important to calm the athlete down. Michael Jordan was very ambidextrous, right? He was dangerous from everywhere, and he was calm, cool, and collected. He didn't force the game. When he would draw back, relax, and then he would take it to him, and then score no points in the first half, and then score 45 points in the second half. These are whole brain thinking athletes that are able to do this and really perform at their best. So this soccer player I talk about is he was so in tune with that. He did the most advanced ambidexterity exercises that I had developed called multitasking, and he still does it every day. It's just part of his deal. His balance is just insane, and a lot from his his surfing and all the stuff that he does, able to do, has really helped him a lot with that as well. So a little more of about active isolated stretching once again. So let me just describe it without having to actually show you stretches here. We don't have the room for it, but it's a stretch that you hold for 2 seconds. Yes, 2 seconds, not 30 seconds, but 2 seconds. 30 seconds is still the gold standard for stretching, and there seems to be an awakening about that isn't helping people very much, especially for sports preparation. So now what is really popular is active stretching, where you're moving and just getting the body woken up to get ready for the sports. Active isolated stretching is based on the principle of reciprocal inhibition. So what that means is I'll try to show you here is if I'm going to stretch my forearm, it wants to be relaxed when I stretch it. So what I do is I activate the agonist, or this muscle here, and then I gently pull back that arm here, the hand there, and then I release it. I exhale and I go 1, 2, 1, 2. So reciprocal inhibition, engage this muscle, relax this muscle. Now it's ready to stretch, right? As simple as that. But this goes through the body in such tremendous detail, and it's super gentle. When you push too hard, if I really cranked on that muscle there, the myotatic reflex, the stretch reflex, would kick on, and it said, "You're not moving," and it would just lock it down and wouldn't let it go. So it's super gentle. I barely pull at all with this assisted hand. I barely pull at all with that. It's just a little bit of extra pressure, about 6 ounces of pressure. Under a pound of pressure is what it's stated in Aaron's findings. And but the detail in it is so amazing through the entire body. And say one for those that are therapists and yeah, or trainers or doctors, like say piriformis syndrome. Piriformis syndrome is misdiagnosed tremendously. I just read an article this morning about 1 million cases a year from MRIs being misdiagnosed, low back pain being misdiagnosed. They all think it's a disc, but a lot of times it is in that or for sciatica, misdiagnosed sciatica. So it's not necessarily from a disc. It is a lot of the time from the piriformis being inflamed and having asymmetry in the piriformis, one side being shorter than the other, or in creating inflammation and pulling that sacrum to the side as well. And then from inflammation, that piriformis muscle rests on that sciatic nerve and then creates radicular pain down your leg. So to open that up, there's a whole unlayering process even to get to the piriformis. There's a lot of piriformis stretches that you see, like people sitting back and crossing their leg and pulling their leg back, cement, where it's like straight on like this, where your knee's here and you lay back on your back. You see these quite often. But the piriformis crosses the body. So the knee, when you stretch it, needs to cross the body, and then it actually needs to rotate. It needs to rotate, and then you specifically get the attachment at the greater trochanter. That's just the one. Then then you drag it across with a specific landmark, the knee across the body. Then you can get the sacral attachment. Then you open up from the ends of the piriformis muscle. But even to get to the piriformis, the glutes have to be open. The gluteal muscles have to be open first to be able to get down in there, because it's an unlayering process to get down into that. And this goes with so many of them. Just using that as an example, I had a great soccer player from Corona del Mar, incredible natural athlete. He ended up playing at Berkeley. He's an amazing player, but boy was he tight. He was so tight. He could barely raise his leg off about a foot. I have a picture of this in a brochure, about a foot off the table. Because his hamstrings were so tight. It appeared to be his hamstrings. He couldn't lift his leg up, right? So I opened up his calves, and it went from that 1 foot all the way to normal, just from opening up his calves with active isolated stretching. That's how tight they can be. Just the calves themselves. He was completely set up for an Achilles rupture. I mean, that's where they seem to come from, are these are the tight calves. But how do you unlock those? There's several. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 basic lower leg stretches that you do for the calves, just to open those up. They're triplanar. There's 3 different angles to almost all of these stretches. It gets very, very specific. The way that I've integrated it into my own as an athlete. So how do you integrate it into your routine? You know, there's I don't know how many. There's so many stretches to do, 80 stretches or whatever. I get this down to where I do my full body, because I do it so regularly. I'll get it down to about 20 minutes, and I feel, and that's after a little bit of an active warm up. I do a lot of multitasking, ambidexterity exercises before I stretch, and I get it down to about 20 minutes of stretching, lower and upper body in great detail before I go to jiu-jitsu. And I make sure that I'm opened up before I go. I've done that for since I started doing active isolated stretching. So I've always done that, but now much more so, I have to make sure that I stay on that because of the connective tissue changes a little bit when you're 50. So I really warm myself up. It's a very mindful process. So I get it down to about 20 minutes when you do it regularly. And so, say you're in a tournament, um, you're in a tournament. The thing is with active isolated stretching, as opposed to static stretching, is that it doesn't burn the ATPs out of the muscle attachments and slow you down. So it's actually very enhancing and invigorating to do before your sport. It helps you to be even more explosive. The fastest men in the world were all going to see Aaron Maditz when they were the fastest men in the world. Many gold medalists in the Olympics were going to Aaron. The only time Tyson Gay beat Usain Bolt was when he was going to Aaron, and he changed him. They beat him in a world track meet. They were the 100, in the 100 meter. That's quite something to say. So it's really great for sports preparation. So so that's my daily workout. I do that. My daily workout before I train my jiu-jitsu, before Olympic weightlifting, kettlebells. But in a tournament, I stretch that morning. I open myself up. You go to the tournament. You never know when you're going to end up competing. Say you have 5 matches. I'll lightly stretch right when I get there. And then we'll see what goes on, see how long I'm going to wait. If I'm stagnating and waiting around for an hour, doing nothing, but hanging out and laughing with the dudes. Although my friends will tell you, before competing, I don't seem to be able to form a sentence, so I don't talk that much. But I think that you stagnate that long, you're really at a disadvantage, and you're really setting yourself up for more injury. So active isolated stretching, because of its nature, of its invigorating nature, its nurturing nature, to prepare you for sports, you can then say, okay, it looks like it's going to be another half an hour, 20 minutes. I'm going to lay down, I'm going to stretch just a few repetitions through the body. I keep my circulation going. I always keep my circulation going. Do a match. As soon as I'm off the match, I'm stretching my hands, making my grip so that it's really fresh again for the sport of jiu-jitsu. Your grip can get really taxed out. So then you have that other match. You got another match in between. I do the same thing. Maybe it's 5 minutes. Sometimes it's been 5 minutes I had between matches, and you're really tired. So I would still take one repetition through the whole body, and I'd take that 5 minutes and I'd do something with it. Right? You can apply this to baseball. When you're sitting in that dugout, they're just stagnating. Guys, especially at the pro level, Major League Baseball, there's superior athletes, but this has got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with the physiological effects of stagnating your energy when you're in that dugout for a long time. They could be in there just gently doing active isolated stretching, 1, 2, stretching those rotator muscles, 1, 2, and just keeping themselves fresh, stretching their neck. There's great strategies that could be used and applied to so many different sports this way. And that's another point, is the circulation, which I wanted to bring up, is that in Chinese medicine, the root of all evil is lack of circulation. So stagnating qi, stagnating blood. So this really enhances circulation at a very high level, really helps the lymphatic system flow tremendously, because the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. It needs movement to pump it. The blood system has a lot of the heart pumping away and pushing it, but that lymph system, the end and beginning of the blood system, it needs movement. So movement really helps enhance that and to help detoxify your body. Probably one of the most miraculous things I've ever seen through active isolated stretching was I worked on a man, and Aaron works on them regularly, people with Parkinson's, and I worked on a man in Thailand, and I worked on him. He came in shuffling, about 65. He's shuffling over with an arm shaking, and I worked on him. It's one of the hard to believe things, which should have been videotaped, but worked on him for 3 hours the first day, 2.5 hours the next day, and he walked out of that room walking like an 18-year-old boy. He had a shen in his eyes. He was a bright shen in his eyes, and he was walking with his chest up. You really couldn't tell anything was going wrong with him. His arm stopped shaking. this is, and I actually called Aaron from Thailand. I said, Aaron, I go, like I did something wrong or something. I go, is this supposed to work that way? Is it supposed to work that fast? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, sometimes the first day, you know. So it's really amazing. So what it's saying is, what is it doing? It's really increasing neurocommunication in the body through the myofascial system, and it's also, potentially detoxing the body, as Parkinson's is potentially a toxic disease, and toxins can store themselves all through the body. And the active isolated stretching it's like a pumping action, so it pumps waste tissue through the body, toxic substance through the body, and helps eliminate it. So where it may not have been able to eliminate before. Breakdown. We're going to close it up here. A breakdown of my practice. My practice is integrative. I was taught from the beginning to be holistically minded, to have a lot of tools in my bag, to study intensely and to study thoroughly different systems, so that I had things to bring to my patients in any situation. So I'm not really into the niches or the riches concept. I'm able to approach things from different levels, as I integrate lifeline technique, which is amazing for communicating with the subconscious mind and helping breakthroughs with subconscious emotional reactive patterns, as well as doing the active isolated stretching. And then a lot of my influences from also in TBM and fascial manipulation, whole brain thinking, ambidexterity, Tai Chi and Qigong, big part of my practice. I'll use cupping when I need to. Very influenced by Olympic weightlifting. I look through the lenses of Oriental medicine, which is about your relationship with nature. My practice is really very focused and founded in active isolated stretching, because movement is one of the great defining characteristics of life. When we stop moving, we cease to live. That's the definition of getting older. It's like stopping, not being able to do stuff anymore. You get this posture going on, where we keep this posture really up and straight, and we keep the vital energy flowing through the body, and your mind is alive and working, your mind, body, spirit, truly working this, and in understanding and using tools that will help aid to this. I think that covers everything. I covered a lot of the questions that I know people were asking me about active isolated stretching in my practice as well. I'd like to thank Justin Franson for putting this whole thing together. This great Go Beyond Summit. Such a great job with it, and I'm very honored to be a part of all these great speakers that are in the summit. I mean, just amazing people that have done some great things in the health and wellness industry, and are real pioneers as well. I'm really honored to be a part of this group. I can be reached at kellyconnected.com, as you may see here, at kellyconnected.com over there. And I'd love you all to email me if you're interested, because I do teach seminars. I'm going to teach seminars on active isolated stretching that are for everyone, not just practitioners, not just trainers or doctors. It is for everyone to take care of yourself. And that's where you can find me. You can communicate with me through that website. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the speakers. Some great ones. Some friends of mine are coming up. Jerzy Gregorek speaking today. There's still some great speakers left today. Justin really pulled in some amazing people. So enjoy the rest of the summit, and I hope this has been helpful and informative for you. Hope to see you soon.